Supras and Skylines get all of the attention, but there is one JDM import that for a long time has flown under the radar here in the States. A car that has been a staple of the Japanese drift scene. A car that you might remember from long nights playing Gran Turismo. This is the Toyota Chaser JZX100. Right behind me is a 1996 Toyota Chaser Tourer V. Because of our 25-year import law, the JZX100 has only recently been legal to bring over to the States. And what better version to import than the Chaser Tourer V, which is the sportiest model with the turbocharged 1JZ GTE engine. And this one's been modified just a little bit. Sadly, we never got the Chaser here in the States. To the untrained American eye, the JZX100 kind of looks like a nice Camry, or maybe even like a second-gen Acura TL. And it doesn't immediately stand out unlike some other JDM imports. Even with these mods and GTR wheels, it still has an understated appearance. It's kind of a sleeper unless you know what you're looking at, or you hear the amazing sound of the 1JZ. If you spent your childhood glued to the screen playing Gran Turismo on your PlayStation, or spent any amount of time watching JDM cars drift, chances are you're aware of the Toyota Chaser. But if you're not, let's get a little Chaser history lesson. Way back in 1968, Toyota introduced the compact Corona Mark II. Prior to its introduction, Toyota was mostly known for smaller economy cars. The slightly larger Mark II helped the company build a name for itself as a manufacturer of mainstream vehicles, allowing Toyota to expand its reach globally.
Corona Mark II.
Success of the Mark II grew, and 2 additional variations of the car were introduced using different approaches to styling, marketing, and sales channels. The Chaser came about in 1977 as a sportier version of the Mark II.
新しい生き物が生まれた。しなやかな動きで迫る美しい野生。チェイサー!
And the Cresta appeared in 1980 as a luxury model. The first generation Chaser was available as a compact 2-door coupe and a 4-door sedan, but every subsequent gen was a mid-size 4-door sedan only. My favorite in terms of styling is probably the JZX90. But let's get to the car that so many JDM fans are drooling over, this 6th generation JZX100 that was introduced in 1996. The 6th gen had several trim levels and engines, but the Tourer V was the sportiest and most desirable version. It set itself apart with that turbocharged 1JZ motor with variable valve timing. In stock form, the JZX100 Chaser Tourer V is a fantastic, competent, and extremely powerful grand touring sedan.
The strong new Chaser.
The stellar reputation of this car began to spread, along with a growing awareness that the 1JZ motor could make big power with bolt-on mods. It wasn't long before it became a staple of the Japanese drifting scene. And it would go racing too. The Chaser won many Japanese touring car championship races. The Drift King himself, Keiichi Tsuchiya, even raced one. And in 1998, Masanori Sakiya raced a naturally aspirated 3SGE powered Chaser, racking up 6 wins, securing the season title by a wide margin. So yes, the Chaser, it can go racing and it can win. Production of the Chaser ended in 2001 after a 24-year run, and it was replaced with the Verosa. Oh, what were they thinking? I think I'm gonna be sick. In stock form, the JZX100 is sort of stately, kind of classy. Some might say it's a little generic, but to me, it's more the fact that it just has really clean lines. And like I said, it can be a sleeper, but it seems like a lot of owners choose to make theirs a bit less subtle. This one is still understated, but it certainly doesn't look stock. There are some modifications that hint at the true capabilities of this car. It's lowered on D-Max coilovers, it's got BNR 32 GTR wheels, of course you got the body kit, aftermarket rear spoiler, Greddy front-mounted intercooler. Under the hood is the 2.5-liter turbocharged 1JZ GTE inline 6-cylinder with VVTi or variable valve timing. There are some mods, including the J-pipe delete and some other things that I'm not smart enough to talk about, but all you really need to know is that it's powerful, the car is quick, and it sounds amazing. It made about 280 horsepower from the factory, and some have said that Toyota's horsepower rating was likely conservative. It probably made a lot more. A lot of people love to call the JZX100 a four-door Supra. Yeah, the Supra got the turbocharged 1JZ GTE motor, but never got this 1JZ with variable valve timing. And the VVTi allows for a broader torque curve. It makes a fair amount more torque at lower RPMs. The Mark III Supra also had a twin turbo setup rather than the single turbo setup here. So yeah, I don't have much of a problem calling this a four-door Supra, but if you want to get technical, there are a few slight differences. But who cares about that? What really matters is that it didn't take long for people to realize that having Supra-like performance in a practical package was an incredibly rad thing. Can somebody that speaks Japanese let me know what she's saying? I have no idea. So my first impressions of this interior, it very much looks like a late 90s Toyota product, but it looks really nice. And these seats, they're not racing seats by any stretch of the imagination, but they are pretty comfortable. And no, it's not just plain fabric. We have this really elegant diagonal pattern right here. This fabric it's cloth, but it sort of looks like a 1970s velour. It's pretty nice. Very 90s looking Toyota switchgear. Right here we have automatic climate control, which was kind of a big deal in the late 90s. This is a luxury car after all. Space for your coins, a very 90s thing. Who uses coins anymore? The Toyota clock that was in pretty much every single Toyota product for like 1,000 years. All right, now this is pretty cool. Swing vents. They actually swing back and forth, ensuring that the driver and all passengers get equal amount of air conditioning or heat. So obviously there's a few mods that have occurred here. Aftermarket steering wheel and extender. Right here you can see that because the steering wheel is so far out, you actually need a little extender for your turn signal stock as well. It's a little weird. I'm not used to having the steering wheel so close to me, but I guess if you like to drift, that's probably the way to go. Right here on the e-brake, you got the obligatory drift button. Got aftermarket gauges for oil pressure, oil temperature, water temp, turbo boost. Right here in front of me is the Blitz electronic boost controller. And tucked away somewhere down there is the SAFC, which modifies the fuel curve. But this is awesome. Look at this right here in the center. This navigation system currently thinks I'm driving around on the streets of Tokyo or something. Obviously, the system does not work here in the States. I'm in the middle of nowhere in California. But yeah, it's pretty fun to watch this as you're driving around, trying to figure out where the heck we are in Japan. Let's take a look right in front of me. Now, this steering wheel pretty much blocks my view of all the gauges, but I guess when you're drifting, you don't really care how fast you're going or how much fuel you have. But yeah, if you peer down, you look at the gauges, it kind of reminds me of like a 90s Lexus LS. And you might notice the Christmas tree of lights. Yes, this car has been manual swapped. I think a lot of these systems are disengaged. Traction control, it has the ETS snow light on. ECT power light is illuminated. So yeah, just ignore all that stuff up there and just drive it. I hate driving in the city and the suburbs, so I'm out here on one of my favorite canyon roads. And it's been a couple years since I've driven a right-hand drive vehicle. Actually, the last one was the Mitsubishi Pajero that I reviewed on this channel. And if you're not familiar with driving a right-hand drive vehicle in a place where they're uncommon, it's not too terribly difficult to get up to speed. Main thing I always forget is the turn signal is on the right instead of the left. And obviously, first gear is gonna be furthest away from you instead of closest. Other than that, it's pretty easy, but you will get a few looks of completely confused people wondering why you're on the wrong side of the car. So yeah, this Chaser is comfortable. After all, it was a pretty nice car for 1997. The ride is good, even with these coilovers. It's not too harsh, not too stiff. Now I'm kind of tall and surprisingly I can't really get my seat that far back. I'm basically eating the steering wheel, it's so close to me. This is the style, you gotta have this aftermarket steering wheel that's like in your face. I don't know, I'm not really into it. It looks really cool, but I think I just prefer a regular Toyota Chaser steering wheel. I know, I'm like the uncool dad driving this car. Give me the regular steering wheel. Only kids like this kind of garbage. It's not that bad. I do like the fact that it's a smaller steering wheel. So as I mentioned, under the hood is that sweet turbocharged 24-valve dual overhead cam inline six. So if you know anything about the 1JZ GTE motor, you know that they can be modded for some pretty extreme, insane horsepower numbers. But we're not too far from stock here. I think we're probably anywhere from 280 to 300 horsepower in this one. And that's quite powerful for 1997. Maybe not as impressive by today's standards, but it's certainly still quick enough to get you into some serious trouble on public roads. Now this car is a manual transmission, but as you can see, it has been swapped to a manual. It was originally an auto. The auto trans indicators are still there on the dashboard. And all that power is sent to the rear wheels. And in this car, we've got some sort of limited slip differential. It's very aggressive. It almost feels like a welded diff. This car is just begging to be drifted. I don't think it wants to do anything other than that. So I generally try to keep my speeds reasonable. As I've gotten older, I've learned that it's way more fun and less of a hazard to others to limit power slides and drifting to the skid pad or to the racetrack. But even at legal speeds, this thing is still a riot, especially because of the way it sounds. And about those sounds, this modified Tourer V might just be one of the best sounding cars I've ever driven. It's hard to put my finger on exactly what makes it so special, but I guess I would say that it's musical. The exhaust resonances are just so pleasing to the ear. You can't help but laugh maniacally while you drive this thing. So this vehicle wouldn't exactly be my first choice on a road like this with extremely tight turns. It handles well, but it does feel really big. This was meant to be a sporty luxury Grand Tourer after all, not a canyon carver. But what this particular Chaser may lack in outright agility, it more than makes up for in fun. And to be honest, this car would be the most at home drifting on a racetrack. And if I owned a Chaser, and this one right here is kind of making me want to own a Chaser, I'd probably spend most of my time with it at the track too, trying my best to not suck at drifting. And you probably don't want to see me try to drift anything. I'm really bad at it, and I don't exactly want to embarrass myself in this video any more than I already have. I mean, you've seen how I dress myself. I don't need any more reasons for you to poke fun at me. All right, so here's my dad moment of the video. Save the drifting for the racetrack. Sideshows are stupid. Don't run over any pedestrians, please. Go to the track. Speaking of dad stuff, one fantastic thing about this Chaser is that with all of this performance, it's surprisingly practical too. Great to cart around your kids. My daughter loves this car, especially the sounds that it makes. So here we are in this cool car.
Do you want to know why it's cool?
Why is it cool?
It has silly sounds. There's one of our silly sounds. Yeah, that's so funny!
The JZX100 Chaser, especially the Tourer V, has become much more known here in the States than it was just a few years ago. I've been driving this around Los Angeles for a couple weeks, and this understated gray sedan has gotten more thumbs up in waves than any other car I've ever driven. They were a cult classic for years, but now we're seeing a spike in popularity, which also means prices are going up. You'll pay a premium for the sporty Tourer V like I got here, especially if it has a manual transmission. I've seen a car like this one with well-done mods imported to the States listed for over $30,000. Not exactly a bargain. There may not be that many Chasers in the US, but it seems pretty clear that it's no longer a hidden gem. There's certainly an appeal to an elegant sedan with the performance of a Supra, but you can actually fit your family and friends inside. The JZX100 Chaser is old enough that some of us that raced it in Gran Turismo as a kid finally have nostalgia for these super rad cars. If you want to relive some of those drifting memories of the late 90s and early 2000s, there may not be a cooler choice than this insanely capable JDM icon. If you like this video and you want to see more like it, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon. If you want to help support the show so I can afford a wardrobe that doesn't include shirts like this, please consider buying a Hello Road t-shirt at helloroad.tv/shop or joining me on Patreon at patreon.com/helloroad. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you're well, and I'll see you soon. Do you think that I should get a car like this?
Yes, definitely.
Why do you think I should get a car like this?
Yeah, so it sounds. Buy it.